Well, as always, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for your comments on my videos and recommendations and suggestions for other videos for me to watch. I really appreciate every comment and I really love reading them all, so please keep commenting on the videos with any interesting stuff about Canada or recommendations for other videos. And yeah, really loving reading all your comments, it's great. And today we're going to be looking at another video about Canada. This one is called Things You Shouldn't Do in Canada. Watch this before it's too late. So yeah, really interested to see what sort of things you shouldn't do in Canada. Obviously, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know I'm from the UK, but I've lived in Asia for the last 10 years. I'm currently living in Malaysia. So as someone who's from another country, living in another country, if that makes sense, I just know that you should always treat your country with respect, the country you're in, even your home country. You should always just be the best person you can be. Just act normal, act nice, act respectful. So I'm interested to know what things you shouldn't do in Canada. For me, in living in Malaysia, there's things I shouldn't do, but I just kind of don't do them naturally anyway. Maybe I'll make a video about that or talk about that in the future. But let's check these ones out first of all.
Hey, this is Yulia and welcome to my channel. Here to talk all things living abroad, moving abroad, studying abroad, and much more. You already know that stuff. I know many of you are moving to Canada this upcoming January. First of all, congratulations, you did it. If you're not moving to Canada just yet, you might still be interested in watching this video. In this video, I want to talk about things that you should not do in Canada. People are people, they're all the same. Yes, but if you're moving to another country, to a new country, you need to know about certain rules and regulations in that country. Many of these things are common sense, but for some reason people still forget about them when moving to a new country. I don't know, maybe they're stressed because of the whole moving situation, or I don't know what's happening. Don't forget that we are all coming from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds. So take this video as a reminder to be a nice human being. Thing number one that you should not do in Canada is call Canadian people Americans. It's literally the same as calling Ukrainians Russians, Portuguese, Spanish. You know, it's horrible, super offensive. People get mad, sad. So please don't call Canadians Americans, but also don't compare those countries because they're all different. Because people sometimes are like, oh, Canada, yeah, like in States. No, Canada is not States. It's not, I mean, it's close, but it's not the same country. Yes, it's the same continent, but just don't. The second thing...
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't get why people do that. Tell me if you're from Canada, if you've ever experienced someone calling you American. Like, they're two completely distinct, different countries. I mean, although they border each other, they couldn't really be too much different. Of course, there's similarities, but I feel that that's quite rude to say, to say things like that, just call people American. But obviously it's similar. I'm from Scotland, so people, yeah, it's like people calling me English, which I don't actually have a problem with. Actually, a lot of people call me Irish based on my accent. They think I'm from Ireland, so I'm so used to it by now. Actually, as I mentioned, I lived in Asia for 10 years. Actually, a lot of people don't even know of Scotland. They don't know where Scotland is. So a lot of the time when people ask me where I'm from, I just have to say UK, I'm from Britain, because they don't actually know. I sometimes say Scotland, they're like, where's Scotland? What is Scotland? They don't actually know, so I have to say like where whiskey comes from, things like that. Is just above England. People still don't know, but and people like, sometimes I'll go places, people say like, where are you from? And they'll be like, don't tell me, let me guess. And they'll say like Germany, Denmark, Sweden. They'll just say so much different things. So I've had things like this a lot living in a different country, but for me it doesn't really offend me, but you should always just try not to be offensive if possible.
Is don't call indigenous people names. Meaning you can call them indigenous people, you can call them Aboriginal people, First Nations even, but never call them Indians, Eskimos. This is super offensive. I know a lot of people who are still living in Canada and have been there for years. They still don't know the difference between all of these terms. But if you're interested in learning more about indigenous cultures and stuff, I can recommend you Shinanova. It's not an ad. She's indigenous and she talks a lot about the culture and about these names and terms. So if you want to dive deep into the First Nations culture, please go follow. Thing number 3.
Yeah, tell me more about that, because actually when I was brought up in school, being in the UK and Scotland, like Eskimo was just known as a type of people. It wasn't. We weren't really told where Eskimo people were from. I'm saying this now, but she's saying not to say Eskimo, which is offensive. I just never knew that was offensive, because that's when we were brought up in school. That was what we were taught as a word. So is that an offensive word, and why? Things like, yeah, obviously you can call them like native people and Aboriginal people, which is, if that's what it's preferred, that's definitely what we should call them. But yeah, I'm going to be doing more videos about the native people of Canada, because things like that interest me a lot, because it's not so common in the UK. We don't have like native people as such. We just have all like people who we don't really follow our lineage back so far back, and don't have people who are still having these very unique cultures in modern day, maybe because we're such a small country. But yeah, very interested to know more about that, and why the terms like Eskimo would be offensive.
3 is a huge one. The thing that you should not be doing in Canada, and it is shit talking. Meaning no controversial topics. Religion, politics, money, genders, physical appearance, private life. If you don't know people, just stay away from these conversations. Because in some cultures, it's totally fine to, discuss somebody's weight or appearance or whatsoever, being like, oh, you look, Natasha gained weight after pregnancy.
That's definitely an Asian culture that's very
Canada,
common, actually.
It's super rude,
I've noticed,
and offensive, and people can even report you to HR, to some kind of services. This can be taken as bullying or harassment. So if you don't want to end up in jail or like paying fines, please stay away from these conversations. Keep it to yourself. But if you're talking to your friends and you're 100% sure in these people, you can discuss these topics for sure. Like, I can talk to my friends and be like, hey, how much money do you make? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I think I'm not making enough. Like, what's the range? Blah, blah. It's totally fine. But if you're talking to a person you've literally seen 2 times in your life, I don't think it's a good idea to discuss any of these topics. Thing number 4.
Yeah, I think that's quite fair, actually. That's similar. I guess that's something we share in the UK, where you don't really talk too much about politics and gender and things like this, because they can be quite controversial subjects. So people just try and shy away from it, unless it's your close friends, and you can have some banter about it and stuff like that as well. Things like religion or politics and stuff like that. Tell me what you think about that. Is it things those conversational topics that you stray away from in order not to like offend people and stuff, or are you quite open to talking about these things? For me personally, I'm very open. I'll talk about anything. I don't mind having like debates and arguments. If people say things about my viewpoint, I don't really get offended. I'm quite easygoing in that way.
What that you shouldn't be doing in Canada is staring at other people. I know in some cultures it's totally fine when you are on the bus and you're like, what a pretty lady. In Canada, you shouldn't be doing that. First of all, people might get self-conscious. They be like, what are you staring at? They might get aggressive, being like, why the hell are you staring at me? What do you want? I'm gonna fight you. Maybe it's gonna be Sergey, but not a Canadian person. But you get the idea. Don't stare at people. But also don't discuss them in your language, because sometimes these people might know the language. Me and my friends had so many situations like that, when a girl walks by and my friend's like, what are you laughing at? Turn around and she's like, because it is funny. The whole conversation is in Russian. And my friend is like, okay, it's funny. So please, people, do understand your language. Do not stare at people and do not discuss. Thing number...
Yeah, the staring at people, that's something I have to contend with living in Asia. Obviously, I'm very white. You see what I look like, so a lot of places I go here, people just stare at me, and at first it was a bit disconcerting and a bit hard to get used to. I used to get a bit annoyed about it. It still goes on all the time. I'll be walking down the street with my family, especially now because I have a kind of mixed race family. My wife's Malaysian and we have a mixed kid, so people stare at us all the time. Now I don't really bother too much, but I can understand why people would feel uncomfortable staring at people and why you shouldn't really do that.
5. Do not discriminate people. Canada is the country of immigrants. People come from different cultures, countries. They have different beliefs, different genders, orientation. whatsoever. Everyone in Canada is treated equally. So please don't discriminate others based on your personal beliefs. If you think,
that's
I
fair,
don't know,
fair enough.
coffee is the best, don't discriminate people who drink tea, because tea is also good. Or people who drink orange juice. Maybe you don't like it, but that's not the reason to, be like, ew, orange juice. No discrimination allowed in Canada. Oh, those tea drinkers. But also, if you want to say something, unless you're 100% sure what you're going to say, you can say that. Because if there's a slight hint of you being sexist, homophobic, racist, whatsoever, again, you're gonna be reported, you're gonna be fined, sent to jail maybe, depending on what you've said. So please be careful with your words, especially in 21st century. It's very easy to offend someone. Thing number 6 is very interesting, because for some cultures it's totally fine, and for others it's like, the hell is going on? And it is gift giving. So let's say in Russia, if a doctor performs a surgery, the parents of whatever, let's say it was a son, this guy's parents can come and bring some, gifts, maybe like chocolates, maybe like alcohol, to the doctor, saying thank you. In Canada, if you do something like that, it might be taken as bribing, because you're not allowed to give any gifts to anyone. People might be suspended from their works, they might be reported to HRs, they might get fired. I mean, they might go to jail again, but depending on the bribe. So if you want to thank someone, just don't, bring expensive stuff, blah, blah, blah. But you can always leave tips as a thank you. Let's say you go to a restaurant, you go to a manicure, and you really liked your manicure, you can be like, thank you, here's a tip. It's totally fine, but as long as it's not something, super expensive, fancy kind of stuff.
Is that true? Does that apply to things like doctors and stuff like that? I know that when you're working and you take gifts from like your client or supplier or something like that, that can be classed as a bribe, but I never knew that even if things like a doctor, if you were to give them like a little gift, that would be classed as a bribe, because I'm not sure what benefit you'll get long term out of it. Maybe seeing doctors quicker and things, I guess. But is that seen as bribery in Canada? Is it something that's just definitely not done? Have you ever did anything like that before?
The next thing is also super common sense, but people forget about that one. Don't try to change people around you, because you are the one who came to their country. But also don't forget to respect your new home. Meaning, don't try to, change everyone and everything. You don't come to your friend's place being like, you know what, in my apartment, the sofa stands there, so let's move the whole thing around so it looks like my home. No, you can't do that. You come to a new country, to a new place, you respect the rules, the regulation. If you don't like it, the door is over there. You can always book flight and then go home, where everything like you used to. There are a lot of differences and similarities, of course, in Canadian culture, in, let's say, my culture, but you either get used to that stuff, you try and adopt these new habits. For example, birthdays. That's a huge thing for Russian people, because in Canada, so if someone invites you for a birthday, they like, okay, you guys come to my birthday, but you all pay for yourself, no gifts. In Russia, a birthday girl, for example, me, I invite my friends, I pay for everything. And then they bring me gifts.
Never knew that.
So the first time I went to a birthday party in Canada, I was like, I'm paying for myself at your birthday? Like, what's going on? But I wasn't trying to be like, but in Russia we do that, we do this. No, I'm like, okay, this is the procedure in Canada. I can either try and adopt it and be like people here, or I can just keep quiet and go to Russia, and then I'll pay for me and my friends for my birthday, And last but not least.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think it's quite good that she's got that attitude. That's the attitude you should have when you move to a different country. It should be following the traditions and culture of that country, and not really arguing against it, just accepting that's the way people do things. It can be different. I mean, even for me being from Scotland, I'm sure there's a lot of differences to Canada and how people actually live their life and how traditions and processes go. That is definitely that's the sort of attitude you should have when you move to a different country.
At least You're not allowed to be rude in Canada because people are literally so nice. They will always smile, they will help you. If anything happens, let's say you go to college and you have a problem, you go to students association, you go to international office, and people will help you. It doesn't matter what your problem is, they will try their best to help you to solve your problem. I know moving to another country might be stressful, you might get carried away with all these things happening, but please don't forget to smile because you are in this beautiful country called Canada, which is now your home, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. And this is it for today. I hope the video...
Okay, that was really interesting. Again, another good videos. I like those ones where you see people's own experiences living in different countries, and they can tell you the good points and bad points and see the country through like a normal person's eyes, rather than some of these other videos that are like compilations done by companies and things. It's like I really like to see that first-hand experience, and you can really see she's really enjoying Canada. Like everything is like really nice, and she's telling things not to do in Canada, but they're all like, for me, all common sense and things that anybody moving to any country should follow. These sort of rules and things that she's describing here. The last one about like going and being helped by different departments and places and things like that. I love that. That makes Canada even better for me because like in Malaysia here, sometimes it can be difficult. You can go to like government departments or go and try and apply for certain things. It can be very laborious and very difficult to do. Like people can be not as helpful as other countries. Sometimes, especially if you're a foreigner, they can make it a bit more difficult and not treat you with that 100% respect sometimes. Whereas Canada sounds like perfect. Like people are very helpful and they want to go out their way to try and help you and make your life a little bit easier when you're doing these sort of things. So I love that. And yeah, great roundup of things you shouldn't do in Canada. Tell me what other things you shouldn't do in Canada. Tell me what you think about the things she's mentioned here. Thanks.